In what is by all accounts an obliterated area of the city, Origami is going head-to-head against a little kid wearing a blue and white CR unit. With her other own partners down, Origami draws in the young lady. Subsequent to diverting her, Origami proceeds to go after her from behind, until the young lady's domain shields her from Origami's assault. At that point, a lady's voice says that time has expired, and it is undeniably uncovered to have been a training match. Ryuko ponders in wonder how the young lady figured out how to ward off 10 of her soldiers without anyone else without any problem. She then, at that point, disregards the remark, as the young lady has gained notoriety for having killed a soul previously. Later on, Ryuko has the young lady acquaint herself with her crew. The young lady presents herself as Mana Takamiya, a second lieutenant wizard. Subsequently, Ryuko smacks both Mana and Origami on their heads and asks both for what valid reason they needed to obliterate the hardware they were utilizing during a training match. Both of them essentially apologize to her. Ryuko then encourages the two to not do so again before she lets Mana know that they will then be going over about their past experience with the soul recluse. Mana goes along after Ryuko welcomes her to sit and go along with them. As Ryuko plays a feat of her in her group's past fight with Yoshino, Mana and Origami at first talk in regards to Ryuko until Origami specifies that the rest have been discussing her and how she has killed a soul previously, with Origami asking how she had the option to make it happen. Mana makes sense of for Origami that this specific soul isn't no different either way and that she need to confront them distinctively each time. In the wake of let Origami know this, Mana then sees Shido in the feed and bafflingly calls him her sibling. Much to Origami's extraordinary astonishment after hearing this. In a little while, Origami defies Mana over a clarification with respect to her cases of being Shido's other younger sibling. Mana then inquires as to whether he is a companion of Shido's, which makes Origami quickly guarantees that they are seeing someone, shockingly. In the interim, at school, Tamie Okamine reports to her group of another student from another school that will join their class. She then requests that the new understudy come inside and present herself. The new understudy presents herself as Kurumi Tokasaki and afterward promptly reports that she is a soul, which gets Shido, Origami, and Toka unsuspecting this. As Tamie advises Kurumi to pick her seat, Kurumi then, at that point, inquires as to whether one of them could show her around because of her being new to the school. Tanamachi rapidly lifts his hand to chip in, yet he is turned somewhere near Kurumi. She then, at that point, strolls toward Shido and inquires as to whether he could be the one to direct her around after class, which Shido hesitantly concurs. At the Tengu Camp Army installation, Ryuko and her kindred partners have recently gotten reports that a soul had as of late moved to Raisin High. With Mana adding that this specific soul is deadlier than the rest, uncovering that this soul has killed north of 10,000 individuals just without anyone else, and, surprisingly, more with the option of spacequake passings, with the investigation of the soul being finished. Uncovering the soul's codename as Nightmare. Back with Shido, Kotori affirms to Shido that Kurumi is to be sure a soul and instructs him to give his all to cause her fall for him before the AST to show up and mediate. Kurumi calls Shido and inquires as to whether he is prepared to show her around. The two then, at that point, leave the homeroom similarly as Toka and Origami watch. On board Fraxinus, Kotori and Kanazuki screen Shido and Kurumi's action and from the screen. Kurumi asks Shido where they ought to go first, provoking a choice for the Fraxinus team to decide for Shido's answer: 1. The rooftop, 2. The medical caretaker's office, or 3. The cafeteria. After the democratic interaction, number 1 gets a higher vote. Yet Kotori asks who decided in favor of number 3. Rain uncovers that it was her vote. After being inquired as to why, Rain makes sense of her explanation, at which Kotori ultimately concurs with and advises Shido to take Kurumi to the school cafeteria. From the homeroom, Toka and Origami notice the two, with Toka thinking about the thing Kurumi is arranging with Shido, and Origami remarking that no one will get among her and Shido. At the school cafeteria, Shido shows Kurumi the lunch menu which he clears up for her. Kurumi then, at that point, plays with Shido, which Kodori lets him know would be something terrible for them assuming he succumbs to her. Shido and Kurumi then progress forward and another choice shows up for the team to browse. Kanazuki settles on a choice at picking the third choice, which is by having Kurumi uncover her undies, making Kodori have Kanazuki be removed once more. Kodori then ponders resoundingly the way in which such a debased choice came up, however this unintentionally makes Shido express it to Kurumi. Kodori then promptly lets Shido know that that was not his directions and that he should get some information about being a soul, yet advises him to switch up the conversation rapidly. Nonetheless, Kurumi inquires as to whether he might want to take a pinnacle, astounding Shido. She adds that she wouldn't see any problems insofar as it was him, and she strolls up the steps close to them. Kurumi then leisurely lifts her skirt up, however Shido then stops her and asks her what she implied before about her being a soul herself. Kurumi then, at that point, uncovers to Shido that she has a profound knowledge of him and is familiar with his new dealings with the other spirits, which gets Kodori and Rain's consideration. Shido gets some information about him, however Kurumi simply expresses that it is her mysterious for the time being. She adds, in any case, that since she originally learned about him, she has had her eyes on him for quite a while and had been wanting to at long last be distant from everyone else with him. Kurumi then takes Shido's hands and inquires as to whether he could help out for her. However, before she can get out whatever it is, Toka and Origami uncover themselves dropping out of a storage, causing Shido a deep sense of shock and Kurumi's entertainment. When asked by Shido what they were doing, Toka says that she was just searching for himself, and Origami rapidly says that understudies are prohibited for clasping hands at school, requesting Kurumi to relinquish Shido this occurrence. Kurumi then, at that point, energetically says that she just had an instance of frailty and that Shido was just taking care of her. Hearing this, Origami goes about like she additionally has a similar disease to stand out. Toka brags at Origami and Kurumi for their endeavors, yet additionally does likewise and simultaneously goes about like she has a similar sickness, yet articulates it wrong, which Shido remedies for. Sadly, man-made intelligence, and me see what's going on and makes another misconception, much to Shido's sheer disappointment. Later after school, Kurumi says thanks to Shido and Toka for showing her around the school, yet murmurs to Shido that next time she wishes it would be only both of them alone. She then expresses farewell to the two preceding, running off. Shido then asks Toka where Origami is, with Toka answering that she doesn't have any idea yet feels that she had previously returned home without help from anyone else. Kurumi is then joyfully skirting coming back until she finds a man and apologizes. Two additional different men emerge from a back street close by, and the man lets Kurumi know that she needs to accomplish more than apologize before they let her move along. Kurumi then, at that point, understands that the three men are anticipating physically attacking her and cooperates with her very own demonstration. She directs the three to the close-by rear entryway, and abruptly, the three would-be attackers shout in dread as blood splatters on the ground. Inside the rear entryway, Kurumi is remaining among the blood-stained back street and viciously thanks the three for the feast. Out of nowhere, Mana shows up before Kurumi and faces her. Somewhere else, Shido and Toka have quite recently completed shopping for food and are returning. As they walk, Toka prescribes something yummy to eat, with Kodori additionally concurring. All of a sudden, both Shido and Toka experience Mana before them, with Mana shocked to see one of them at long last. Shido then, at that point, inquires as to whether Toka knows her, however she doesn't. Out of nowhere, Mana approaches Shido and embraces him, calling him her elder sibling, to the total amazement of Shido, Toka, and Kodori. Shido and Toka show Mana the Itsuka house where he right now resides in and meets Kodori interestingly. as Shido, Kotori, and Mana sit. Yashinon specifies how Shido and Mana look precisely similar, with Mana communicating how it ought not be a shock since they are connected all things considered. Shido then pleasantly tells Mana that he doesn't recall her. At which Mana answers that she likewise remembers nothing from the past aside from 2 or quite a while back, with Shido inquiring as to whether she additionally doesn't recollect who their mom was, with Mana affirming that she doesn't. At the point when Kotori asks how she would realize that she and Shido are connected, Mana shows them a memento containing an image of her and Shido back when they were still children. Shido is exceptionally stunned to see himself with Mana while Kotori is in dismay that the news is all evident. Mana specifies where she was totally vexed after Shido went off someplace and that she stressed over him consistently. Happy, Mana goes to embrace Shido yet is intruded on by Kotori, who kicks Shido away. Both Shido and Mana request why Kotori did that, to which Kotori reasons that Shido is her more established sibling as well and that she doesn't believe anybody should remove him from her. Mana gets it and says that she wasn't intending to do something like this. However, expresses that by the day's end that she will in any case be Shido's natural younger sibling, making a contention eject among her and Kotori. After the entire thing, both Kotori and Mana ask Shido who he believes is the better younger sibling between them. With Shido avoids rapidly and on second thought inquires as to whether she lives alone. Mana answers that she lives with a gathering who she works with and afterward leaves a while later. The following day at school, Tammy is actually taking a look at the participation and gets no reaction while calling out to for Kurumi. Toka says that she may be late, yet Origami abruptly voices out that Kurumi will never again be going to their school. Similarly as Tammy progresses forward, the class entryway opens and Kurumi shows up, pardoning herself for being late. Shido then sees Origami responding peculiarly to Kurumi's presence and receives a message from Kotori on his telephone, requesting that he meet her at the material science planning room at noon. Later at lunch, Shido goes to the material science room and when he asks Kotori for what reason he requested that he come, Rain shows him the observation film from yesterday, where he sees Mana defying Kurumi with Origami and the AST close by. In the video feed, both Mana and Kurumi prepare their CR unit and astral dress separately, which shocks Shido. As he keeps watching, Kurumi is immediately impacted by Mana, injuring her, and when she attempts to get back up to confront her, she is indeed shot, mortally injuring her and taking her out. Mana then, at that point, gets in nearer to Kurumi and polishes her off by beheading her, which apparently appalls Shido. Rain then, at that point, says that Kurumi was killed by Mana and the AST yesterday. Taking note of that Kurumi ought to be dead, and Shido confusingly says that it's impractical as she is as of now in their group, as they can't help thinking about how she is as yet alive. In the interim, Origami goes up against Kurumi alone close to the school's housetop and Origami tells her that she ought to be dead. Kurumi then, at that point, limits Origami with her shadow hands, nonchalantly commenting at how effectively she, Mana and the AST managed her the day preceding. However, at that point advises her that she isn't dead any longer. At the point when Origami requests how she will treat her, Kurumi then makes reference to it how tomfoolery being at school has been for her, yet specifies that that isn't the explanation she is there, but instead, Shido is the explanation she is there. Kurumi then, at that point, compromises Origami to never hold her up toward Shido, derangedly chuckling to Origami that she needs Shido all to herself.